Hi everyone, in this video, let us understand how to create an IAM user to access the AWS console. IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. It's a very important service, and this service is integrated with many other AWS services. For day-to-day work, it's not a good idea to log in into the AWS account using the root user. Root user is the email ID using which you created the AWS account initially. We should create a dedicated IAM user to log in into the AWS account for the day-to-day work. Apart from that, there are IAM roles also that we can leverage. But for today, let us understand how to create a dedicated IAM user to authenticate into the AWS account. We will do sign in to the console. So here there are two options. One is the root user, one is the IAM user. So this is a brand new account. We have not created any IAM user. So we have created an AWS account using the root user. Root user means the email ID with which we have created the AWS account. So here, let us type our email ID with which you have created the AWS account. So for example, I'm just typing, some name. Uh, let's say some name, your username at gmail.com, right? So here you enter your email ID and then click next. So here enter the password that you created. This is not your Gmail password or any email ID password. This is the separate password that you have created when you created the AWS account. So we logged into the AWS console. You can see on the right, this is the name of the account, dev-test-account 2. I created an alias to the AWS account, this AWS account number. And if you see, we have not logged in with a specific IAM user. We logged in with the root IAM user. So this is the region. There are many regions across the globe. So let us take East, which is North Virginia. It is one of the biggest region available, and most of the services are available there. So let's use that for all the work that we do in this video. So that is US East one, and there is a lot of other regions like you see here, and there is a code. Each region has a code. For example, US East Ohio is US East 2. So things like that. And similarly, for Mumbai in India, we have Asia Pacific Mumbai, this AP South 1. Okay. Now, let's go to IAM. So before we go to IAM, let's first see this is a dashboard where you can see the access to various services. You can directly type the service here, or you can see if the service is available, you can directly click. So in this case, identity and authorization management is a service. So I can type here. I'm just showing how you can do that. So I go to IAM service. So the identity and access management service looks like this. So some of the services are very region specific. Some of the services are very global. So if you see here, it's a global service. You don't see a particular region selected because this service works across the globe for a given AWS account. Whereas if I go for example, EC2, just to show an example, EC2 service is very regional service. So you can see, you can select the region also. You can select the US East 2 and any resource that you create will be available only within this region. But some services like IAM, Identity and Access Management, is a global service. So let's go there. Now, there are some security recommendations here that will fix it eventually. And you can see a dashboard which shows how many user groups are available, users, roles, policies, and identity providers. So right now, it's a brand new account. We have not created any user groups, users. There are some roles available. These are mostly predefined roles. We have not created any roles. User groups are 0 users. So here we are not really going to explain in detail about what a user means, what a role means. We will do that later. The purpose is to create an admin user. So let's go and create a user. So every time we log into the AWS account, we'll be using this IAM user. It is always a good practice to create one permanent IAM admin user, and you can also create some roles to log in. So let's first create a role. Let us first create a user using which we'll be able to log in. So if you go to the users on the right side, you can see create user. Let us click on the create user. Let us say the username is user underscore admin. There's a checkbox. Provide user access to the AWS management console. So here, what does it mean? So here, what does it mean? It means can we use this user to access the AWS console, or we can use this user only to access some APIs. So, but in this case, we wanted to use this user to access the AWS console. So I'll select this checkbox. So there are two types of users. Specify a user in identity center, and I want to create IAM user. This is the best practice. We have to use this identity center service, which we will do later. In a separate video, we'll discuss how to use this. But for now, for this example, I will select the second option. I want to create an IAM user. Auto generate a password, custom password. So I don't want to generate the password later. So I'll select a password. I'll select a permanent password. Okay. And users must create a new password at the next login. No, I will not create a new password. I'll be using this only. And go next. Now, there are some options to create a group and add this user to the group. So we don't have any group so far, like we saw earlier. And you can set some permissions to this user. So you can attach some IAM policies. So the IAM policies will provide authorization to access various AWS services. So in this case, I will not create any users group here. We will do that later. And we will not add any IAM policies directly to the user. The reason is, instead of adding the permissions to the user, it's better you add the permissions to the group itself, so that any user in that IAM group will assume that IAM permissions automatically, right? So there's one more selection here, set a permission boundary. So for now, I will just leave it to default. So this basically talks about what are the maximum permission that a user can access. So in this case, I'm creating an admin user, so I do not want to put any permission boundaries. So I'll just leave it as default and go next. So just double check the username is user underscore admin. I set a password which is custom, and I don't need to reset the password, and just create the user. Okay. Now this is my login URL. This is the user. This is just a password. Then you can go to the view user. Continue without viewing or downloading the console password. Okay. Okay. Now, this is how the user looks like. Every AWS resource will have something called ARN, Amazon Resource Name. It's like identification, unique identification for every AWS resource. So we did not set any permissions here. There are no groups and security credentials. So to log into AWS console, we created a username and password. This is the username and we set a password. Now it's always a better idea to set multi-factor authentication for better security. We'll do that. Access keys. So these are the keys that you use to access the AWS APIs programmatically, right? So we'll do that. And there are some keys required, research public keys to access the code commit. We'll do that later. For now, what we will do is we'll create an access key, which is very important. When you create an access key, you will be creating a username and password to set some environment variables or configure the AWS CLI to access the APIs. Okay. Now, what is the use case? So we wanted to use this with the AWS CLI. So let us select the command line interface option. Okay. So okay. So mention some tags. So I'll just leave it now. Okay. This is a access key and the secret access key is this. So this is like a username and password. This is very important. This is a secret code. We should not reveal that at any point of time. And this access key and the secret access key are permanent in nature. Whereas for IAM role, the access key and secret access key will keep getting rotated for security purpose. So since these are the permanent credentials, we should never reveal it and never store it outside and keep it them very secure. So there is a CSV file that you can download. So this is the file which contains username and password. Done. So we have created a user and created a security credentials. And so here, let us set a multi-factor authentication device. So in this case, I will say it's an MFA device. So there are two options, authentication apps. So I will say this is my admin user, right? So um, user admin in which account? So for example, I can say dev test account. So that way it's easy to remember for which particular account for which user this MFA device is set. So there are three options: authenticator app, security key, hardware EOTP token. So let us use this. Next. So there are some instructions here. Install a compatible application like Google Authenticator, which is very popular. So now this application is already installed in my mobile. So let me first open that in my mobile. Okay, I open this application in my mobile. Now there is a plus button application on the mobile. Just click on the plus button, which will provide an option to scan a QR code. I selected that. Now here I will do show QR code. So let me first scan it. I scanned it. So this is one more field we have to enter. Fill in two consecutive ports from your MFA device. So there will be one code generated automatically. So let me enter that. Okay, and there's one more. 5, 7, 5, and 9. Done. MFA device assigned. Now we can register many devices, but currently let's create only one device for now, and that's it. So if you look at the dashboard, feedback, we'll do that later. So I'll say cancel now. Let's go to the IAM user. Now we created IAM user. So if you go to the IAM um, access management control, so you see security recommendation. This is for the root user. For the root user means the Gmail ID user which you have logged in initially. So I'll set a similar MFA token there later. But for the IAM user, we have already set it. So if you see the permissions, so we have not assigned any permission, and we did create one particular MFA device. Then we created a access key, right? Now let us create IAM group. So in this video, what we will do is we'll create a IAM group. So let's create a group and let's call this group name as sys_admins. Okay, so that means any user who is part of this group will access all the permissions set to this particular group. So earlier we have created a user which is user_admin. So I'll select this user to be added to this group, and here I will add administrator access. This is the master AWS IAM permission which contains every possible permission to access any AWS resource. So this highest level of permission we are assigning to this sysadmins. Now let's create the group. So one group is created which is sys_admins. So one user is added. The permissions for this particular group is administrator access. The administrator access is very important. We should not assign to each and every user. Only the critical, most important users whom you wanted to provide this access, you can put those users in this group. There's an access advisor tab. We'll do that later. But for now, we have created a IAM user and added that to the group. So, so for what we have completed is created a user and created a group and add this user to the group and set a permission to this group, which is administrator access. And going forward, we'll be logging into the AWS console only using this particular user. We will not be using the root user, which is the Gmail ID or any email ID that you use to create the AWS account. So let us log off. So I'll just copy this account number. I'll do sign out. Now again I do sign in. So here I can provide either the number or the name. So the name is dev-test-account number 2. So this is my alias to the AWS account I created. So here in the IAM user, let's enter the username, that is user_admin. This is a custom password that we have set, and I'll say remember this account, sign in. Your authentication information is incorrect. Let me enter the password properly. Looks like I've entered wrong. Okay. This time I entered the right password, so it is proceeding further. Now it is asking for the MFA code. So now I'm opening my mobile and looking for that MFA device that I've registered. So let me enter the code. Okay, great. So if you see, right now we have logged in as IAM user, which is user underscore admin. Now this is the ID, this is the user. Now let's go to the IAM console again and let's see what we have done so far. Since this is the root privileges, admin privileges, we'll be able to see all the groups and users that we have in the account. Okay. Going forward, for any AWS account login, we'll be using this IAM user. Root user, we will not be using for the regular day-to-day work. We will be using the root user for certain activities, but for the regular work, we'll be using only the IAM user.